Welcome to another episode of Cadence Fishing TV, and I'm with our brand ambassador Paul Kozyra, a good friend, and we're fishing on a new venue for me, which is the River Hull in East Yorkshire. Tell us a bit about the venue, Paul.
Yeah, we're here at Ticton, James, and as you say, it's a tidal river as well as the Hull, and it's, I do believe, the most northerly chalk stream in the country. You go further upstream and it's gin clear and you can see the chalk.
Oh wow.
So
well, I mean, it doesn't look like a chalk stream here, but that's amazing.
It definitely doesn't, no.
It reminds me a bit of the Fens, really.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that, as you say, it is very tidal, so that's going to be quite interesting today.
It's going to be interesting for you. I mean, I know what it's like. At the moment, tide's topping, it's just filling up now and it's running quite gentle, but you're going to expect it to run pretty hard when it runs off.
Well, I've seen some fish topping, so that's got my juices going.
Has it?
And what's the format for today?
Well, as you know, we're £1 each, so as it happens...
You can't resist it, can you?
As it happens, and you know I can't resist it. There's only the two of us, but it's going to be a knock-up. Right, and there's no section money, it's just a straight winner take all.
All right then.
My pal.
Good luck. Cheers, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, Paul told me that bread punch is really effective here, particularly in the winter, and that's what we've both started on. And I just cooked 2 balls of punch crumb in at 11 metres, and I actually had a fish first cast. It was really a great response. I've had 7 roach now in really as many put-ins. But you can see that the river's actually flowing to the left, which is actually upstream, so the river's backing up with the tide, and it's going to make it very interesting today to see how the tide affects the fishing. But at the moment the fish are feeding really well, so I'm quite surprised really, given it's a very cold start. I wasn't really expecting to get into the fish that quickly, but that's the great thing about bread punch. It can be such a reliable and quick method to catch on. I've got other baits as well, maggots, hemp and casters, but at the start I'm just going to concentrate on bread and take it from there.
Well, the tide has topped and it's just started to turn now, and the chap has come across and told me what James has had, and I think we're about neck and neck. While the tide was backing up, I've started on the whip because it's only running very gently, so that gives me the best chance of nailing a few while the flow's quite slow. It is going to pick up, and that's when the flat float comes in. Yeah, it's flowing the right way now, which is what we're more used to. I've started off on the bread like we normally do here, the locals do anyway. Bread mixed with a bit of hemp. There we go. They're only small at the moment, but catching one of those for chuck. We start on the bread, as we say. Feeding punch crumb with a bit of gravel in, some hemp mixed in with it. And as the session progresses and the flow picks up, we'll mix more gravel, make it rock hard and get it straight down to the bottom, and you'll see an example of that later. But so far it's going very well.
Well, the river's flowing quite hard now, and it's dropped about 6 inches since we were starting when the river was backing up. And I've switched between 2 rigs. I've set up a 3 gram and a 2 gram. And when the river was slower, the 2 gram was definitely better, but now it's paced up. I've switched back to the 3 gram float. And obviously I've had to shallow up a bit as the river's dropping. And I'm finding quite a positive rig with the bulk only about a foot from the hook, and a good positive dropper, so almost like a double bulk is working best. And that's actually number 50 now. I'll just hold that up for you. So, like I said at the start, they're not monsters, but they're beautiful roach and they're great weight builders. I think I'm going to top up now with a couple more balls. I've been trying to top up every 10 fish. Good time to show you what I'm using. I'm using punch crumb, which is basically just white ground bait. I mixed it the night before, and it takes a bit of time to prepare it properly, but you can see that it's a lovely fine mix, but it's one that will squeeze really hard. And obviously when you're fishing in a powerful flow like that, like we've got today, that's really important. Another little trick that I do is I'll add that into my sort of bowl that I'm feeding from. I've added in a handful of hemp, and a good trick when it really is powerful like this is I add a stone to the middle of the ball, so almost like a Scotch egg really, but just maybe gives it that bit more weight to get it down. And what I'm doing is I'm putting 2 balls in, one small hard one like that, one not so hard. And I'll just show you, I've got this quite big cup which enables me to do that. I like to not always feed 2 different size balls, but enables me to feed 2 balls at the same time. And sometimes, like I'm doing there, I'll have different consistencies with the 2 balls. So I think the heavy ball is going to get right down quickly, and the less lightly squeezed one is perhaps going to break up and settle a bit further down the peg. And obviously with it flowing like this, I'm having to be careful how I'm feeding, but I actually like to have a bit of a spread of bait when I'm fishing bread on a river. So I want to be able to run my hook bait through an area of bread, and you'll see that I'm actually feeding it upstream. Where I'm actually catching is down here. So where I'm putting the bread is a fair way upstream, probably about 3 meters. And the fish will tell you where they're going to be. So I can see those balls are sinking. In fact, I can sort of follow it with my cup. So they're sinking at that sort of speed. And I reckon they're going to be settling around about now. And that's where I'm getting the bites. So the line I've fished is 11 meters. And when I plumbed up, you sort of got to about 8 meters, and then it was a fairly flat depth really, going right out to 14 meters. It perhaps deepened just a few inches. And I just wanted to start off and fish as efficiently as I could. So I didn't want to go too far out, but I felt if I fished any shorter, as you're coming up the ledge, it perhaps could have been a lot snaggier. So I'm now thinking I perhaps should have fed it at 8 meters, given how prolific it is. But I didn't know that at the start, and I felt by fishing at 11 meters, I got an option of, you know, fishing further past that if it was a harder day. I just missed a bite, but it's a good opportunity to show you about the punch. So I favour the old Drennan plastic punches. That's the largest one that comes with it. I think that's 10 millimeters. And you can see I keep my bread in my drawer to keep it as fresh as I can. And I like to just touch that punch, because I don't want to have a really hard pellet. I like to have quite a fluffy pellet when I'm fishing the punch. If I was using a shallower, perhaps a brash punch, that would compact the pellet a lot more. Obviously there's days when you want to do that, but for the most part when I'm punch fishing, I like to have a really nice fluffy piece of bread like that. I think it's more natural, and I think you get a quicker bite as well. So I'm just lowering that in above where I think the feed is, and then running it over the top. And it'd be interesting to see if this does pace up more, because it'll become quite challenging, I think. Even with a 3 gram float, I might have to start thinking about using a heavier float or even a flat float. But that was another bite that I missed, so I'm going to have to change something. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shallow up a little bit, so I can see on my marker that that's dropped perhaps even an inch while we've been talking. So the float I'm using is Sensus Letitia. Got a wire stem, a nice hollow visible tip. As I said, that's a 3 gram. You can see I've got my bulk here with an Olivet and then number 8s below it, and then I've actually got 3 number 8s as my double bulk. Now I could spread that out, obviously, if I wanted to give a better presentation and fish it on the drop, but at the moment, because it's quite pacey and powerful, I want a positive rig. That's a 16 B511 hook to an 08 hook length. Hey, I better stop talking, because looks like Paul might be beating me up a bit at the moment. I better concentrate on the fishing again.
we're well into the session now, and chap has come over, told me James is still doing okay, and I've got between 45 and 50 roach so far, so I think I'm doing okay as well. At the moment the flow's pretty steady, so I'm still fishing the whip, which is much more efficient than the pole, and I'm still getting plenty of bites. Normally when the flow picks up you've got to hold it quite still to catch, but still catching them, pretty much running it through with a slim bollow float, fishing at 7.5 metres to hand. I've found with the bread punch that 6 millimetres seems to be the best. I've tried 4, tried 5, and I've even tried 7, but 6 gets me a bite pretty much every run through, and it doesn't seem to make any difference to the size of the fish what size bread punch we use. So I'm using the Drennan brass-headed punches. They are the best. You might notice this is a new one. I dropped my other in the drink last week. Not always the best idea, but yeah, it's fishing really well, and that's my count so far. Keeping a count of them today so I can keep my tabs on James. The pound's quite important. I want to see if I can get it back. And the way this is going, if it carries on like this, it'll be a good day. I set off putting just one large ball of breadcrumb in, white breadcrumb, mixed with some hemp and gravel, because it was backing up when we started, so I needed to get the bait down quickly, so I mixed some gravel with it, and that does the job. Here we go, there's another one. One a cast at the moment, but they're getting smaller, and you can see that's probably one of the smallest I've had. And what happens when they start to get smaller, that's when we top up. So because we've got some flow on now, I'm going to top up using my pole pop, because I want to get it accurate. As you can see there, we've got aquarium gravel. That's all the little yellow and white segments, and plenty of hemp in it. And that method seems to work very well on here. I don't know what James is putting in his, but that's what I'm doing. There you go. And what I tend to do when I'm fishing this method on a, particularly on a quite a strong flowing river, find the spot we want to be, we're looking, that's the line we're going to fish, but what I do is I lift it up and I drop it in from a good height, because I believe that noise brings the fish towards where that ball's dropped in. So now I've put that in, let's see if it makes a difference to the stamp of fish. It usually does. So I've got 6 millimetre punch. Quite a simple job. Put it onto my size 18 B560 hook. Yep. The bread itself is prepared at home. I do it the night before, and it's not much of a preparation. One of the local anglers gave me the tip, and he's a really good bread fisherman. And if I just open this up for you, I'll just show you that. It's a Warburton's medium slice, the orange packet, which is that one. And what we do, cut the crusts off, cut it in half, and I've got a fish on here, and then put it in one of the there we go, when he stops wriggling. If you can get that. A little bit better stamp than the last one, and they will improve as the day goes on. Oh, that's the theory anyway. Anyway, back to how we prepare the bed. We cut the slice up, and then just cut the crusts off, cut it in half, and then just put it into the resealable bag. I'll just show you in a minute. I'll just catch you another fish and I'll just show you how I do it, because it's a very good tip, and it's quite important really. I never use a rolling pin, and I don't microwave it. But I'll just catch you another fish and then I'll show you what I do. There you go. You get no better than that, do you? That's confidence or cockiness, whichever way you want to look at it. Got a resealable, one of the zip bags. So at home on your countertop, put the bread in, just normal bread, it's not squashed, just cut off the loaf. And then lay them out flat like that, and you need to get the air out. So what we do is lay them in strips like that, and then roll it over, press the air, roll it over, press it to push the air out, roll it over again, right to the end, and then this is the importance of the zip bag. Seal it up like that, and as you can see, pretty much vacuum packed bread. And then you just put it in your fridge, leave it overnight, and it comes out perfectly. As you can see, it's not squashed flat, but it's not fluffy, it's sort of in between. And it's quite important when roach fishing not to have your bread too compacted. A lot of people advocate squash it flat, microwave it, etc. But you find that the disc of bread doesn't swell up in time, and these roach, especially on here, especially when you're feeding on a flowing river, tend to come straight in and take the bait. But if they come in and the bread's not fluffy, they just ignore it, so you get twice as many bites doing it this way. It fluffs up, and just sealing it like we've said tends to keep it on the hook well as well. The rig I'm using whip wise, it's a pretty standard connection for me. What I do is double silicone method, and we wrap the line round the rear silicone, wrap it round, push another piece of silicone on the top, and you can see that I have a piece of 12-pound Maxima, that's what that is on there. Tie a good knot on the end, and then we attach our rig using the crow's foot method, if you like, double loop, same as you do with a Dacron connector, and that takes care of connecting the rig line up. And what I'm using today on here, pretty much because I'm running it through, is a DH number 5 Bolo 4 gram. I'm using quite a heavy float, but that's really just to get the bait straight down to where the fish are. It just speeds all the process up. It's no good letting it fall slowly through the water because the fish are down at the bottom, because that's where you're putting your bait. Starting with the Olivet, I've got an online one, and the reason I use these is because I can alter my shotting. If I want to put more shot down the line, put a smaller Olivet on, change it quite simply, so that just fits with double silicone there. So today I've got I think it's 3.5 gram is that Olivet. I've got a string of number 8s underneath there. That's just to so I can alter the shotting pattern if I want. Can move them down the line a bit, but the important bit to me is I've just got just a little triple bulk on there. As you can see, 3 number 8s on there. And I'm finding today that the roach are taking the bait as soon as that settles. I've tried shirt button style, if you like, and for a slow drop, but it doesn't seem to work as well as that little drop or so, as that little bunch of shot, should I say. So I've got a double bulk in effect, and that's attached to a 6-inch hook length. Oop, get that back out of my hand, there we go. A 6-inch hook length tied to an 18 B560, and it's 010 is that hook length. And I use 010 because that's really strong enough to swing these fish in. On my pole line, which we'll look at later, I use an 08. So that's my rig. We'll get a bit of punch on and see if we can't catch one.
Well, we're coming towards the end of our little challenge match, and I've got 109 roach, and it's been really good. I mean, I've had spells where I've really caught and then it's gone a bit harder, and I think it's just a matter of the fish moving in my peg, and I've found that I perhaps haven't been feeding aggressively enough. I've been topping up more often, perhaps every 5 or 6 fish, and that definitely seems to be better. You can see that it's still really powerful, the flow, and the depth's actually dropped by around about 1 foot now from when we started. And one thing I've found that's helped is I've actually added a 2 more number 8 shot, so I'm actually overshotted the rig. I brought another one down onto the double bulk to make it even more positive. And what I'm finding the best presentation is to actually slow the bait down a bit. I don't know if it's just because of the pace of the river or what, but the fish are feeding near the bottom. I'll just try and show you now. Well, I put in the rig well upstream of where I'm catching to try and ensure that the rig settles nicely. And then I'm letting the flow take the float to where I'm fishing, or where the fish are feeding rather, and I'm really trying to slow it down. And overshotting it is enabling me to do that more effectively. And you can see there, I was actually holding it back and I just let the float go for a second and the fish took it. So it's fascinating, just constantly having to adjust my presentation and rigs and feeding to keep in touch with them. That's a bit smaller stamp. I have been catching some nicer fish, up to probably 5 or 6 ounces. Bait wise, I've tried pinky and maggot over the top, and definitely caught smaller fish. So I've actually stuck with the punch, and I've tried hemp. I mentioned I started feeding hemp, and I haven't had a bite on it. So bread's definitely been my best bait today. I'm not sure if Paul's finding the same. It'd be really interesting to talk to him afterwards and understand what his best bait and tactics have been. But it's interesting watching him because I see he's fishing with a flat float, and I do think he's been catching some better stamp fish than me. But, I just missed a bite then. I've tried smaller punches as well, but I think the 10mm punch has been the best for me. I might even try a slightly bigger one just towards the end of the session, just see if I can get a bigger bonus fish. But there's definitely different stamps of roach here, and I think in a match situation, obviously you want to try and work out the best way to catch the better roach. Would have been interesting to put some casters in with my punch as well, and perhaps try the caster. Well, it just seems like for the moment the fish have just dropped a little bit further down the peg. So I think I'm going to refeed now and see if I can draw them back up. So I'll just show you again what I'm feeding. I'm starting to run a bit low now, but I think I'm just going to put one decent sized ball in. And I'll squeeze it quite hard, and that should just get down to the bottom. I haven't put a stone in this time. So I'll give it a good squeeze. That's a large pole pot I've made myself out of an old Drennan cup that Monty had modified, and that's just off the bottom of a big pot bottle. And that means you can, on good days like this when you're feeding a lot of bread, you can feed a really big ball of bread, or like I was at the start, feeding 2 smaller balls. Also, you can ship it out really quickly and it shouldn't bounce out the pot. So you can see where I'm cupping it in. I actually have some liquidised bread with me, and it might have been interesting to start to mix some liquidised bread in with my punch, because that can be a really good thing to do as well, just to vary your feed. I never really tend to fish just liquidised bread when I'm roach fishing on rivers, because I think you can overfeed the fish. There's clearly a huge amount of fish here, and perhaps on reflection I could have fished with a richer mix. Let's see if they've come back up my peg again. There we go. So that was about halfway up the peg compared to where I caught the last 2.
Right, for those of you who don't use flat float regularly or don't use them at all, I'll give you a little insight into the dynamics of what we use it for. As you can see, the flat float that I'm using is a diamond shape, and if you want to have a quick look at the boat over there, if Chappie pans across, you'll see there's the flat float that I've got. The shape is very similar to the front end of that boat there, so that probably gives you a reason as to why these work so well. And if we look at the front edge of it like that, you've got a boat straight in your mind there when you see it. If that's coming towards you and you're swimming, you'll think that's a boat that cuts through the water fine, and that's one of the reasons these work so well. As far as rigging it up, these have an eye on them, so it makes sure that line runs right off the point of that float there. They're made out of balsa of these, so they work quite well. And running down the rig to the business end, this is an 8-gram float that we've got, or it says 8 gram on it, but in fact it's about 9 gram. It takes a gram of loading, but I've overshotted it. I've got an 8 gram Olivet on there in line. Normally when the flow's not too powerful, I've just got this string of number 8s, as you can see there. But today there's a bit more power to it, so I've added a few number 6s down the line there. and that bombs that float right down to within 18 inches of the deck. And then just above my 6-inch hook length, I've got a string of number 8 shot, as you can see there, going right down to a 6-inch hook length, which is 0.8, and to a size 14 hook in the case that I'm using now. Normally I'm using a 16, but I'm up in my feed and I'm going positive, trying to catch some bigger fish, try to catch James up, get my pound back. So really that's how the flat float works, and we'll gear up, put a bit of punch on, and show you how it sits in the water and how it fishes.
Well, Paul, that was a really interesting quick session. I absolutely loved it. What a venue.
Brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely brilliant here.
I think I've ended up with about 120 roach, all on the punch, and I basically just fished a long pole short line.
Yeah.
It was interesting with the tide, obviously, with it backing up, stopping, and then flowing hard back again. My best rig was a 3 gram rig, and I think for me, if I fished again, I'd be more positive with my feed. I'd have mixed up a lot more punch crumb, and I'd have been feeding maybe by hand, because the fish really responded to the feed, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, I think it's, although you're fishing bread and punch crumb, I think you can treat it as a nugget of every other fish.
Yeah, I think,
you know, like you were ground bait fishing.
I think that would have been better. So how about you? How's your day gone? I saw you catching some better stamp roach.
Yeah, well, I saw you were catching the small ones and regular. I mean, I've set off on the whip when it was backing up because it was quite gentle was the flow, and I fished with a 4 gram, a bit more positive to get the bait down there and hoping to catch a better stamp fish, and I think I've caught better stamp, but I've got less fish than you, and I don't think they'll weigh as much, but we'll find that out later.
Well, we'll definitely find that out now.
Judging by your smell, I think you
I've got to mention the pork pie you tried to... He sent a pork pie down to me with Chappie just to slow me down a bit at one point.
But it didn't choke you then, no.
What a great... Let's have a look and see what we caught.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Let's have a look. Right.
Go on then.
Are you ready, James? Here we go. And the scales, which don't lie, these... I'm giving him 13, 15 and a half.
All right, you're the scalesman. I'm weighing you in, remember?
All right, yeah.
Here, I'll just show the fish before I put them back.
Yeah.
Lovely net of roach.
Brilliant.
Just verifying the scales are 0.
Oh, you're verifying. We've had them calibrated. I heard all this before. The way I like these. Done me.
£10.10.
£10.10.
So the pound's going back to Warwickshire.
Well done, mate.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Again. You all look at them. She happy?
Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching that as much as we've had filming it. It's been a brilliant day, hasn't it, Paul?
It's been fantastic here on the River Hull at Ticton.
Thanks for watching.